We've got some people online that I know have a time crunch, so I'm just going to ask the gallery chit chatter to either move outside or I need your, Councillor Dominato, I really need your vote here. We need to get going. Okay. Okay, so we're going to get going with the next item, which is 2B, budget resolution, which is subject to the approval of 2A, report 2A, which we've just covered. So does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? Committee members, you have up to 5 minutes to ask questions of team members. Are there any questions? Just checking the queue here. Okay, and seeing none, I'd like to ask for a mover, please. Councillor Joe and Councillor Klassen second. And is there any discussion? Okay, so seeing none, we'll move straight to a vote. Thank you. And I see both of our online folks have their video on. Great. Councillor Dominato. That's okay. Okay, that motion does pass with unanimous support. Okay, so we have covered off item 3. We are now going to move to item 4, which is the Vancouver Police Board amended 2024 provisional budget. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? And seeing none, this item does not have a staff presentation. We did hold this item as there are 2 options, option A and option B, in the report recommendations for the committee to adopt. And when moving the report, please specify which of the 2 options you wish to move. And before we do that, we will go to committee member questions of staff. And first up is Councillor Boyle on the queue.
Actually, I'm just trying to pull the document up, so I'll go to the end of the question list.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirby.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I do have questions of staff, and it's really around, well, this may not be a large amount of money relative to the significant size of the overall police budget. I do think the principles of transparency and accountability are important with all publicly funded institutions and those entrusted with public trust. And I find this report, my question is predicated on the fact I would like to understand the rationale for what has been over a couple of years, a 3-fold increase in the police board budget, because I would have felt better about supporting it if I understood the rationale, and I am at a loss to identify any specific information other than a line item or a general comment around, in the police board resolution around the need for oversight. I'm not questioning the need for oversight, but I have no idea how, based on this, how this money would be spent or why they needed a 3-fold increase. So can we get some insight on that from staff?
Question, and I see Patrice is approaching the mic.
Patrice Impey, General Manager, Finance, Risk and Supply Chain Management. We do have members of the police board here today who would probably be better to answer that question, if that's okay.
Thanks. Can we do that quickly, please? My time's taking.
Yep, they're right here. Go ahead.
Hi, Chair, Council, Mayor. So my name is Frank Chung. I'm the newly appointed Vice Chair of the Vancouver Police Board. Happy to answer any particular questions if I understand the question with regards to the increases in the police board budget. If I maybe perhaps just highlight the fact that over the past couple of years, what we have seen is exponential growth in terms of the complexity of files that have come our way as a police board. The complexities are associated with the fact that the policing profession itself is a highly regulated sector. We are regulated by a number of different external parties, including the province who sets standards, the Police Complaints Commissioner, the IIO, as well as human rights commissioners. And so those complexity of files that we have experienced over the past 2 to 3 years has resulted in a lift in the overall police board budget. Now, you're probably wondering what that lift is associated with.
If I can guide you to specifics, like quickly, because we have a limited amount of time. So like I'm
Sure.
looking for what to spend on.
Sure, yeah. So our overall budget has increased because of an increase in salaries and benefits associated with the staff. In the past, we've been operating under 1.5 FTE. We have increased that to 3 FTE. So that is a manager, an analyst, and an administrative assistant. All of the team members, as part of that small team, support the work for our volunteer board members. And so our volunteers require and lean heavily on that 3-person team to be able to provide fiduciary oversight responsibilities. Second is that the legal costs have also increased, as well as advisory costs from the last 2 to 3 years.
So Frank, again, like I'm looking for specificity here. Is it, are these administrative staff? Is it to review complaints? Is it cost being spent on external legal? Like I'm still not getting the level of specificity that I'm trying to gauge here. And I'm also concerned that I understand that the police board has gone ahead when council didn't approve this budget, but these expenses were committed to and made anyway. So from a governance perspective, I'm deeply troubled.
Yes.
By, in terms of an organization that needs public trust, that the expenditures are happening when they were not approved, which is what I'm hearing. And then I'm also zeroing on, is this external legal? Is this reviewing complaints? Are staff planning reviewing complaints? Are these administrative staff? Like, what are they?
Yeah, so the specificities are that the proposed amount that staff have brought forward to you includes a 17% increase in salary and benefits, as well as a 37% increase in non-salaries. Those are associated with not only advisory, but also legal costs for the support that's necessary to review things like complaints, things like particular audits that have been conducted externally, things that we need to be able to increase in terms of our oversight responsibilities, like risk management, like our abilities to look at initiatives to reach out to the community and to work with the community. And so I think that those particular specifics you'll see embedded within that $690,000 budget proposal. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why the significant increase over the years? And so I would say a couple reasons. One is that over the past couple of years, we've had a management transition. And so
Frank, I'm sorry, I'm not getting, can I move for a second round of questions and come back on? Because I'm not going to be able to get the answers I need.
Yes, and that's been seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby Young. We'll move to Councillor Carr, and you can come back on the queue.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, and you might as well stay there because I'm very happy that you are here to answer questions. So I guess I just want to start with the public and even council's understanding of what goes on at the police board. So you're talking about, and I don't know how much of this you're not able to disclose, but what you can disclose would be helpful. And you talked about the increased complexity of files, increased complaints, increased external audits. So how is the public, and I'm not aware as a councillor of what those complaints are, the complexity of files, et cetera. How open are you to being able, and the board, to be able to divulge that sort of in the public?
Yes, so a lot of these complaints come from the public, and they go through, let's say, the public organization called the Policing Complaints Commissioner. And so a lot of these complaints will come our way, and we are involved heavily in reviewing those particular public complaints. There's also other complaints that may come through, let's say, the Human Rights Commissioner, as well as other particular internal complaints as well, too. So those are part of the responsibilities of the police board, but we also have the responsibilities in acting as the employer for the VPD as well, too. So we are all actively involved internally with regards to things like focusing on where to place budget dollars within the VPD.
Okay, so when you take those complaints and review them, are you then, as a police board, able to provide direction to the force itself, either in terms of what might affect budget or what might affect policy, or the work of the board, or the work of the police force itself? Is that Is that your role then?
Our role is predominantly around oversight in policy setting, and so we don't necessarily get involved in the day-to-day operations of policing. That is up to the executive and the incredible team at the VPD. But yes, you are right. I think that if it does touch on broad policies, or that of broad public interest, then that is our responsibility to work with the VPD to ensure that we're moving in the right direction on issues of that sort.
Great. Okay, I'm going to ask a question that relates to the last budget, because this is related, our report is related to that. Was there, I don't remember receiving, as a counselor, the actual request of the police board regarding that budget. So when we got a motion on the floor of council, it was for an amount of money, and I was not aware that that was far less than the request. How do you communicate those requests to council?
Right. And so in the past, I think the practice was different. We broadly worked under the larger VPD budget umbrella, the larger budget envelope. And so some of those costs, while we did actually have salaries and benefits sort of identified, some of the other legal and advisory costs were actually embedded elsewhere within the VPD. And so that's why I think the transparency in the past wasn't as good as what we are trying to achieve moving forward. And so I think this year you'll see us trying to move towards that direction in providing more accountability as to what we need as a police board. We've been working very collaboratively with the city team with regards to identifying what we need as a police board to be able to discharge our responsibilities. And that's really the essence of why we're here today. We're wanting to work towards a more collaborative, cooperative approach with the city, and recognizing that there are remedies under the Police Act that either party can take. That is not our intent. Our intent is to continuously work towards a more collaborative approach because we believe there's an aligned interest with regards to civilian oversight.
Right. I would agree. So is there a commitment from the police board to make sure that councillors, not just the city broadly, but councillors, we make the decision on budgets, are informed about the request of the police board regarding its budget and, the outline of its budget?
Yes, so we've actually had conversations within, our finance committee around how we can be more transparent with the police board budget. As part of this process, we've actually been meeting with the city team with regards to how we can provide greater accountability associated with the police board budget. In particular, setting out an MOU, which would set out the particular engagement that we would have with the city, potentially also how we would be able to communicate before decisions are made with council and the broader sort of city team, as well as ongoing sort of audits with regards to the police board and the broader VPD. And so I think that there is a desire to ensure that the police board budget in particular is and remains both affordable and accountable.
Thank
Great,
you.
that's a
Appreciate
great
it. Yes.
moment to pause over your time, Councillor Carr, but I thought that you would want to hear the full response there. So, Councillor Dominato?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Frank, for being here. A couple of questions. Just circling back, I believe Councillor Kirby Young was asking about the budget and the substance of the budget. You mentioned increases in the budget related to management transition. Are you able to expand on that? And because I do know, having served on boards, that you have regularized costs, and then sometimes there can be one-time costs. And so could you speak to that?
Yes. So in 2023, we had a transition in our management with regards to the executive director. So we did settle a particular grievance, and that created a variance, an unfavorable variance of about $180,000. As well as the appointment of an interim executive director of about $127,000. And that was an extraordinary year because of that transition in 2023. Part of that transition was associated with the fact that we needed to increase our abilities associated with the review of many different sort of complaint issues, which are quite legal in nature. We brought on Jason Kosminski, who's our new executive director, who's just started last year, and a lot of those particular issues are legal in nature, and Jason has a legal background, and so I think part of that was to ensure that we can move towards that particular view that we needed to have increased due diligence with regards to some of these particular public issues.
Okay, thank you. So I heard you mention, I think in response to Councillor Carr's question, that that you're audited as part of the VPDs. VPDs are operations that are subject to annual audits, just as the City of Vancouver is, and most non-public sector organizations. Can you just reflect, are your financials publicly available, just like most nonprofits? And the reason is I'm struggling a little bit with your website this morning, and I'm not sure what that is, if it's on our end. Staff have looked at it for me, but I'm struggling to find certain information. So I'm just curious, is that?
In the past, there was internal financials, I would say internal financials associated with the police board that was published on the website. I would characterize that as being not as accurate as it should be. And so this particular year and moving forward, I think that there's a desire by the board to put forward those particular internal sort of financials associated with police board moving forward and its variances to budget. So we are looking towards greater transparency associated with particularly the police board budget.
Okay. I mean, and excuse me for just my question around this, isn't that required? Are you considered as a board, like, is it not a requirement to publish?
There is no direct requirement, but we work under the broader sort of VPD set of financials, and that is subject absolutely to audit, and that is provided directly to the city team on a regular basis.
Okay.
But in particular, there is a specific line item associated with the police board budget, which is a specific line within the broader VPD financials.
Got it. Okay. Can you remind me just how many board members there are?
They are currently...
No, full composition and what the current composition is today.
It is a total of 8.
Total of 8?
8 plus the chair as mayor.
And how many board members do we have today?
Half
Vacancies?
of that. We have 3 vacancies. 3 vacancies, that's correct.
3 vacancies. And what's the status of the appointments? The province did open it up for 1 week. Applicants had 1 week to apply, and then it was closed, and we haven't heard anything further, or at least I haven't. I'm curious what the status is of provincial, because it's largely provincially appointed, this board.
Correct. So I've had communications with provincial police services, and they've advised me that they've shortlisted the candidates. And they are in the process of orientation of those candidates, and will disclose the names in the short term.
Any timeline on that from the province?
No, they don't disclose as to specifics in terms of exact dates of appointments.
Okay, and just I'll take myself. We have a second round of questions. I'll come back on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dominato. Councillor Boyle.
Thank you for being here to answer all of these questions. The staff report, as well as the letter from the Vancouver Police Board, mentions the board exploring discussions with the city about best practices, and then potentially an MOU or protocol around board council communications. Is that work that council would need to give direction to pursue? That sounds important, especially considering over the years I've been here many questions about how council and the board meet, discuss transparency of information and these difficult decisions. So is that MOU or is that work already underway, or would council need to direct that it be pursued?
So we've actually had some preliminary conversations with city staff on this. I think that would be a decision on your part as to how much involvement council would like to have. We would welcome that involvement, to be absolutely frank, partly because we think that we have aligned interests with the city and the council, and so I believe that any particular conversations and ongoing engagement with council would be very much welcomed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I can also ask city staff that same question, if council direction is needed to further pursue that MOU. No. If
Thanks. I can
Please,
speak to
Collins.
that, Councillor. No, at this stage, we're happy to continue that conversation, and we would be able to bring that back to council.
Okay, great. So my second question is about the work you spoke to, Frank, the increased requests around community engagement. I know there's been attempts to do more in Indigenous relations and Indigenous community support work. How does an increase in the budget help support that work being done well?
There's been some preliminary conversations within the police board around how we are structured, and in particular our committee structures. It should come to no surprise that how we have been approaching working with external stakeholders has not been working. All you need to do is open, papers, and you could probably see some of that there. But I think that the conversations within the police board. I have identified a need to be able to dedicate time associated with outreach with specific stakeholders, and that requires staff time in being able to reach out to these various groups, to be able to set up the meetings, to be able to understand what the core particular issues are, to be able to liaise with other particular groups like the Human Rights Commissioner, like the Police Complaints Commissioner. So that all takes time, and unfortunately our volunteers are very much already stretched in terms of their preparation for board meetings and committee meetings. And so we heavily rely on the board office team to be able to do that legwork for us.
And do we provide honorariums for those advisories? Is that a...
We do. We currently provide what's referred to as per diems. We're going to reconstitute that at some point to rephrase that. However, we are looking at how we can ensure that we are, compensating for the amount of time and effort that goes into, the board and board directors' commitments. And so, we're looking at that. Right now, it's, I would say it's a modest amount, but we probably would want to take a closer look at some point, recognizing obviously that this is a publicly accountable board.
Okay. I have another question that you may not have the information to off the top of your head, so thought I would throw it out there, and if city staff are able to pull it up, that would be helpful. I'm wondering about how the police board budget has increased or not relative to increases in the overall police department budget.
And there's just 10 seconds, Frank.
Yeah, so happy to come back on the list if you or if city staff have that information. Obviously, a huge part of the board work is oversight and staff support. So as that staffing number has grown and the police department budget has grown, how have we increased the board budget over time? But I'm out of time, so I'm just asking it and coming back to get an answer.
Yeah, I think the staff.
I just asked for, sorry, it's just unfortunately there isn't any time to answer the question. So
come back.
members, I think it's only fair to the staff that we allow them to answer the questions we ask, but there'll be a second chance. So keep that answer on the ready. So Councillor Zhou.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Also, thanks, Jason and Frank, for being here to answer the question. So I was going through this report. I found there's a table. So I believe November 21st, the board put forward a draft budget of $0.51 million. And then 6 days later, on November 27th, and there's another budget of $0.91 million. So why all of a sudden, within 6 days, less than a week, the budget almost doubled? And what happened over there? I'm not sure if there's something you can disclose.
Okay.
Hi, Colin Knight, Director of Financial Planning and Analysis. So I can speak to that. So the table that you're referencing within the report, the first column, so the budget that was 510,000, that was part of the draft budget that city staff prepared and shared with council. So that was not the police board's provisional budget. That was, again, a draft budget that had been prepared and assumed consistent levels with prior year. And so then the police board voted on their provisional budget on November 27th, and that was shared with the city. And so that's why you're seeing the change in amounts. It reflects the process that the police board budget approval follows.
I see. Okay, thanks. That's really helpful. And do we have a breakdown of the difference of that $400,000?
We can provide that. I think if you there is some detail that we can get back to you on, and I'll just have to take that away.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Colin. That's all my question, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Zhou. And Councillor, actually, I'm going to advance Councillor Fry, as it is Councillor Fry's second round of question, or first round, and then we'll go to Councillor Kirby Young. Clerks, if you could just adjust the speakers list for me. So Councillor Fry, over to you. Councillor Fry, we don't have your audio, so maybe just double check there.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thanks for joining us, board. And I just want to, just off the top, apologize for the oversight when I hadn't realized, and I think a number of us hadn't realized, that the budget approval actually earlier this year had or in December, had effectively defunded the board and impacted the operating budget right now for the board's function. Has that had an impact on the board's operations?
Yeah, first, I mean, I think I'd like to maybe perhaps just express, our apologies for not have been at the earlier meeting with that particular decision. I think had we had been there, I think that we would have been able to sort of clarify certain things. And I think that some of the decisions associated with that earlier decision on the surface makes sense, partly because that was consistent with the previous years in terms of how we were operating. The reality, I think, is that we are experiencing an increase in the amount of expectations on the police board in its role and its oversight. And so we're, the direction by the board towards this particular budget request is to accurately reflect what is necessary to be able to do and discharge the fiduciary duties. So to your point, it hasn't necessarily affected the current operations today. We continue to operate as is with our current staff complement of 3. However, we have pulled back on the types of particular projects that may have landed in 2024, and so we'll look to maybe perhaps defer some of that into 2025. Some other projects we've been able to also correspondingly work directly with the VPD, and so some of that could be also absorbed directly with the VPD as well too.
Okay, so, I've been naming, obviously, the Auditor General report came back and suggested that there needs to be a significant amount of work into enterprise risk management, which I know you had responded to. But beyond that, we've seen obviously some pretty high-profile resignations, the African Descent Committee withdrawing from the board, allegations of interference and what have you. How much of this is reflected in a lack of funding or the need for more funding for the board?
I think a big portion of what we're seeing play out within, the broader sort of external landscape with our work with external community groups is tied with our ability to be able to respond. I mean, I think that when you're talking about the actual volume of work that comes our way, by virtue, if you had the opportunity to actually both see the both public and in-camera agenda items, you would be amazed by the amount of work that is on the police board agenda. And so, to be able to prioritize a lot of this work is challenging, and so that's partly why we are working with the city team to ensure that we are right-sizing the necessary resources for the police board.
And the enterprise risk management deficiencies that were identified by the AG?
Yes, and so we've been having good conversations with the VPD, and they've brought on good resources on their end, and we feel very confident that between what we have currently with the board complement, potentially also with new board members, and the complement of VPD team members that are being brought on board with enterprise risk, we believe that we can satisfy what we need for 2024.
Okay. And lastly, so the Police Act, I think Part 5, mandates that there needs to be a civilian police board. Is there any stipulation in there around how a board has to be funded or required funding, like a ratio or a formula or anything like that?
No, the Police Act is actually quite broad, and so there is quite a bit of room for interpretation with regards to adequate funding. Our view has always been around the broader VPD envelope, and so we've always worked on under the assumption of the larger budget envelope. However, we recognize that we have to work collaboratively with the city to ensure that we recognize the city's priorities, in particular the council's priorities, and so that's partly why we're here, and to ensure that we have this collaborative relationship with regards to the budget.
There. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Frank.
That is overtime. Councillor Kirby Young, second round.
Hi, Frank. Thanks. I'm going to follow up, and I'm going to be succinct in my questions, and hopefully you can in the answers too, and I appreciate it. You had mentioned, quote, that the legal and advisory costs formerly were embedded elsewhere in the police department budget. And my question, if that is the case, why wasn't that budget transferred from the main police department budget to the board budget if it's now being restated?
You're referring to how the costs were transferred in the past? Is that what you're asking?
It was the comment that you made just a few minutes ago earlier in response to one of my colleagues, and you said legal and advisory costs were previously embedded elsewhere in the police department, end quote. So I'm just wondering, and that this is showing some of those actual costs and the demands on the board. So I'm just wondering why there wasn't a transfer from within the greater, as you put it, police department envelope to the police board.
For 2024 or for previous years?
Well, let's take for 2024 instead of this significant increase, if those costs were previously borne.
Right, and so just to clarify, in the past, some of those variable costs were embedded elsewhere within the VPD budget. But for this year, what we've tried to do is try to paint a much more accurate picture with regards to the police board budget associated with both legal and advisory costs.
And I really appreciate that sort of clarity and transparency. I think that's important for the public. My question is, why is it coming forward as an addition as opposed to a transfer from the main police department budget?
Partly because of just accuracy of allocation. So that's, while I can recognize the fact that we could ultimately work with the VPD with regards to the larger VPD envelope, we believe that we just need to be more accurate within the board budgeting process.
Okay. My next question is really around, you said you're continuing with the 3 FTEs. I had heard that there was additional spending that was happening. Can you just clarify for us, please? Has the board spent above and beyond to date what council previously approved for the budget? And if they have, what if council did not approve this, what would you have to cancel?
The clear answer is no, we have not. In the original submission, as part of the provisional budget, the $900,000 that we had originally proposed, it did include an additional FTE to bring it up to 4 FTEs. However, we've decided, in conjunction with working with the city, to pull and scale that back and just to maintain it at 3 FTEs at this particular juncture.
Okay. Can I ask what the rationale for that is?
Partly because we believe that it's necessary for us to maintain affordability and accountability associated with the budget. And so at this particular juncture, while we would appreciate that additional FTE, that we recognize that we also need to be accountable for our budget. And so the compromise is that we maintain it at 3 FTE.
Okay, and then I guess the last question I have is, so is it fair to reflect back in terms of what I'm hearing and what you said, that the board is recognizing the need for more transparency around the activities of the police board, the expenditures that you have?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby Young. Councillor Dominato for second round.
Thanks, Chair. And Frank, I'm going to shift a little bit just in some of my questions because I think it's relevant to the budget component of this. Could you just speak broadly to council about the important role of the police board in terms of civilian oversight of police operations and that governance role, and how the budget ties into that in terms of supporting you or enabling you to do that role? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, first off, I just want to acknowledge the incredible work by the VPD officers and civilian staff, and they do an incredible amount of work over there that most members of the public don't necessarily see. However, policing in general is a very challenging profession because of the interactions and sometimes the difficult circumstances that our officers encounter with members of the public. You typically will have situations where police officers will encounter members of the public on their very worst day of their life. And so, those particular circumstances require a level of civilian oversight where civilians monitor and oversee at a very policy level associated with policing within the city. We also act as the employer of the VPD, and so what we do is we authorize certain employment practices within the VPD, and so as the employer, we work with the executive around employment standards and policies and ensuring that there's a proper culture within the VPD. And in addition to that, we also work to ensure that there's alignment with policing standards, which is a provincial responsibility. The board members are critical, partly because a majority of them are independent and they have no direct ties with the VPD, and so that independence is necessary to ensure that the VPD is well governed. I would also go on to say that police board governance is not in opposition with the VPD or the interests of the city. In fact, it is fully aligned to ensure that there's credibility of our police force.
Okay, thank you. And just two more questions. One, with respect to the budget proposal today, will it sufficiently meet your needs in carrying out that governance role on behalf of the city?
The city staff proposal will meet absolutely the needs of the police board for 2024.
Okay, thank you. And then last question, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this, just given that governance role and just natural attrition and changes that happen with boards is, it continues to be that the province makes the vast majority of appointments to the civilian board, even though it is actually in the city of Vancouver and similar to other, and the city has one appointment. I'm just curious about your thoughts on that in terms of, does that make sense? Is it good governance to have the province through board resourcing making appointments at the civic level? Should there be a more independent body making those appointments? Should it be done at the civic city level? And I don't know if you have any thoughts on it. I'm curious, just in the context, again, we're talking governance, we're talking budgets, and it's a critical organization.
Yeah, and first off, I mean, I'm not going to necessarily comment around the priorities of the province in terms of police board governance per se. However, I will say that the individuals that are selected to be to act as independent board directors of the police board are usually members, residents of the city, or perhaps individuals that work in the city, and so they've got tied interest as well to seeing public safety carried out in a positive manner.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. Just wanted to follow up, wondering if you have those numbers about the relative increase of the department overall, the department budget overall, and then the police board budget?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have those numbers sitting in front of me today. However, there has been an increase in the broader VPD budget, and I think that I just want to preface that by saying that I think that those increases are justified. I think that we do need to recognize that policing has been quite challenged given the population growth, given the complexity of the work. And so by no means would I want to suggest that we should detract from that funding for the VPD. I think that it should be complementary with the efforts of the police board in terms of being able to provide appropriate civilian oversight.
Okay, great. I'm just going to see if city staff have those numbers too. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you. So I'm going to reference numbers that are published on the city website as part of the 2024 budget that provide a historical view of the police department and the police board budget. And so I'll just highlight a few. So in terms of growth from 2023 to 2024, the police department as a whole, inclusive of the board, grew at 8.3% year over year. And if we look back to 2020, that's a 30% growth for the police department as a whole. In terms of the police board, which administration, which is a line item shown in that table that I'm referencing, based on the $297,000 budget that council approved, that would be a 25% decrease. With the additional 390,000 that's in the options in this report today, that would change it to a 75% growth. So it is a substantial growth in 1 year. But again, in the context, you can see that the budget growth over the past number of years is listed, is also substantial for the department as a whole.
Okay, that second set of numbers about the board budget was 2023 to 2024?
Yes, correct.
We have those numbers from 2020 to 2024?
Yes, the numbers are provided in that public report. Going back to 2020, the police board is 263,000. So I'd have to do some quick math to calculate the percentage increase, but you can, but the 393 increase that's proposed today would be a sizable increase as well, going back even across that 5-year period.
Okay, appreciate those numbers. Thanks for the quick math.
Thank you.
I think I'll leave my questions there. Thank you again for being here and answering them.
Great. Councillor Zhou.
Thanks, Chair. So I just have some final questions to staff. So in terms of the two options here, so what would be the cost to the city if we move option B?
So with respect to option B, so in that option, because in the second clause where it says that further that 393,000 increase be managed within the overall police board budget, to accommodate that increase, that would mean that there would be no net increase to the city budget, because that increase to the police board would be managed within the overall police board or police department approved budget.
Okay, so that means there's no cost to the city if we go the option B, right?
No incremental cost.
No, okay. And option A, that will be funded by the stabilization reserve, I guess, right?
Yeah, that would be correct for this year. And then because it's an ongoing budget approval, that would need to be built into next year's budget. That would be an item that we would have to identify funding for through that process. But public safety is property tax funded.
Okay, thanks, Colin. So, Chair, so seeing no one else on the queue, I'd like to move option B.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, great. So that motion is moved. So we've got option B on the floor with second by Councillor Carr. And just allowing our clerks to pop that up on the screen. We will now move to discussion, noting we're in a question queue, so is that okay? Yeah, well, should we? I think so, yeah. So I'm going to move us over to the main queue. I see Councillor Kirby Young, but Councillor Show, if you want to speak to that and introduce. Just 1 second, Councillor Show. You've got to be on the queue. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll be very brief. I think we heard from the police board very clear, so the additional cost will be cover all the mandate for the police board as a oversight body for the Vancouver Police Department. And also the option B, there's no incremental cost for the city, for the taxpayer. So I think that's the best option at this, for the time being. So that's why I moved the option B. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Show. Councillor Kirby Young.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I support option B because I think, as was illuminated during the questions and the discussion, I was not satisfied with the answer with respect to why the budget couldn't simply have been, there was an incremental ask and it couldn't have been transferred from the PD. And I think that that was really illuminating to hear that funds were previously embedded elsewhere in the department's budget. I think with $442 million, it's not an issue for the overall police budget to find and support this level of funding. I want to be very clear. Transparency and excellent defensible governance is critically important for all public-facing organizations, especially something like the Vancouver Police Department, and in respect to the work that they do in the communities that they interact with. Obviously, it's concerning to hear that we have an increasing number of complaints, that we have some of our cultural communities that those relationships aren't where all of them where they need to be. And I want to make sure that the board is resourced to support and respond to that. But I am struck by the fact that we had the former vice chair of the police board who spent a lot of time speaking about excellence in governance and the importance of that. And I think that we heard today that there are some gaps, and I appreciate Frank Chong coming to speak from the board and his transparency about that. With respect to the fact that there's some work to do in terms of shoring up both the function of the board and making sure they're resourced to do that, but that they actually take those resources and translate that into governance that provides the confidence that the public should have in the oversight and critical oversight role that the board is doing. So I want to support the board in that trajectory for that work and in the gap that they've identified. To improve the governance at the police board. I know that there's obviously provincial review of how police boards function underway, but separate and distinct from that, I think that there's opportunities for the Vancouver Police Board to get better at that, quite frankly, and to up its game. And so having that recognition from the current board members to, and commitment to do that work is really important. But again, I wouldn't support not taking the funds from the existing police department budget for the reasons that were stated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carr.
Thank you. I also really want to thank Frank Chong for being here to answer the questions and provide us with the kind of information and details that we didn't have last December when we were voting on the budget, on the operating budget, and just say that I think it was a really important lesson for us to learn here, which is our budget's extremely big and complicated in many line items, and we normally have a very good amount of information and the availability to talk to staff from various departments around the information, but there was something missing here in terms of information from the VPD and police board at the time. So I feel, at the time, I did not know, to echo the point raised by Councillor Fry, I did not know that what we voted on was a significant decrease in the budget. So we're now correcting in what I believe is an error. It's an error, I think, because I really strongly believe in civilian oversight and the importance of civilian oversight in the policing in the city. I think that's pretty universally accepted, that it's an incredibly important Just responsibility to make sure that those monies and the policing itself is done effectively in fairness and in the public interest. And so I really also commend Frank John for saying that he will in future make sure that council is informed about the budget and the details of the budget of the police board and more information about the police board so that we can be fully apprised of how important the role of this organization is in terms of the city.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. I will echo much of that. I also was quite frustrated in our budgeting process in December with significant last-minute amendments, including this one that get tabled with very little information or opportunity to engage, at least for some of us. The last-minute budget amendment to reduce the police board budget, I think, was very bad practice, and I'm sorry to have not been able to ask more questions of it at the time, but glad to see this increase come forward. I would have also been comfortable supporting the full original police board ask of an additional staff person. We certainly have heard the from the police board and from the public the requests for more capacity to do that important work of providing oversight, of increasing transparency, of being able to meet and fulfill all of these requests from the public. If we want to prioritize that oversight, that transparency and accountability, we need to resource it. And it's clear that the requests are increasing, and so we should make sure that the board is able to function well, and we're supporting the huge amount of volunteer time that goes into the board to do that work well. And so I do think it is important that we be adequately resourcing the police board. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. And last on the queue here is Mayor Sim.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Frank, thank you for coming in and running the gauntlet here and showing up and just being so open to the tough questions. And I just want to acknowledge our police board members. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for all the work that you do. And it's great working side by side with you. Okay, so as you guys know, this council is dedicated to public safety, and that's why we have a fully funded Vancouver Police Department. And with that comes oversight of our police department. And it's extremely important that we have great oversight. And myself personally, I know I think I can speak for this entire council here. But as chair of the police board, committed to very transparent and accountable board that functions responsibly and effectively. And I appreciate the willingness of my fellow board members to work with the city and the VPD to ensure that the board's operations are focused on responsible governance. And so, at the end of the day, with that comes, another goal of being accountable to Vancouver's taxpayers, not just from a tax perspective, but also accountable to Vancouverites who live here, who expect an incredible, police service and the transparency and the accountability that comes with it. And so, for those reasons, I am full support of option B.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sim. So with that, we can go to a vote. And that motion passes with unanimous support. So thank you very much to staff, and thank you very much to members of the police board who were here to answer many questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. So council, we are just at 12 minutes to noon, and we'll continue on with the agenda, just noting that we do have quite a bit more to do, I would say.
Happy to move that we try and continue if council would allow.
continue to complete our agenda today.
Okay,
Chair, point of privilege.
yes.
Councillor Kirby Young and I both have to be somewhere, and I'm wondering if item 5 has been dispensed or if it requires, if it will require all hands on deck for a vote.
Item 5 has been dealt with, so we
Okay,
are
great.
complete on that item. Thank you for checking.
Then I shall bid my adieu.
Right, so I just want to be very clear that if we continue through as proposed, we're likely to go beyond 1 o'clock even, maybe to 1:30, just given that we've got 2 more reports held, 2 motions, and then we'll be going into regular council. So just so everyone's expectations are realistic here. But it is important that we let our speakers know who may be calling in to speak to items. I see there's a whole bunch of people on the queue. So I don't know if they're speaking to the motion.
Not for me. Those are previous.
Okay, so I'm just going to clear the queue if you'd like to speak to this, and just noting that there is a possible motion on the floor, not yet seconded, and we could just continue on. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. I'm just wondering about a temperature check to just have a shorter lunch and regroup.
I'm not sure. I'm looking around the room to see if there's a sense of that. Should we do that? A 30-minute break? Yeah, we don't have a lot more to do. That makes
12:30
sense.
and
Okay.
finish then?
That'll help our speakers with some predictability in terms of when they can call in. Yeah, okay, that's great. So we do have...
Do I need to move that as a motion?
Yes, please, thanks.
I'll move that we break at noon for a half hour and continue again at 12:30.
Great, and seconder? Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Great. So that motion carries. So we will continue on now with item 6 as item 4 is now complete. So item 6 was held by Councillor Carr. It's a 2023 Statement of Financial Information. And before we get going, I just want to check if anybody has a conflict of interest on this item. And seeing none, this item does not have a staff presentation. So Councillor Carr, over to you for questions.
Great, thank you. My first questions have to do with the, statement of financial information, and in particular, the mayor and councillors' remuneration and expenses.
Can I pause you there, please? Sorry, Councillor Carr. We just need to have a check of quorum. Councillor Kirby Young, I see that you're there, but your video's off. Is it possible to turn your video on? Otherwise, we'll need to break for quorum.
Hi, Chair. Yes, I can do that, but can only stay for probably until noon. But you're breaking that anyway, so I'll hang in till then.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Okay, Councillor Carr, back to you.
Great, thank you. And thanks to Councillor Kirby Young. So the questions are first of all, regarding the mayor and councillors' remuneration and expenses. And I'm wondering if there's public disclosure of the details on what councillors spend their discretionary budget on.
Good morning, Julia Aspinall, Director of Financial Services. We do publish the details of councillor expenses through our open source, so that information is available.
Okay, so if that's the case, I just want to clarify, because I haven't seen it in part of this report. It's my understanding that ABC councillors used a good portion of their discretionary expense budget to hire staff in the mayor's office. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, but yes.
Yes, okay. So then I have a question which is more about, I think it's really about the legitimacy of that. What is the role of the mayor's office and staff? Are they intended to support the mayor in the mayor's role in serving the public interest, the city interest, and the larger public interest, including all of council?
Okay, I see Patrice MP approaching, please. Thank you.
I actually was going to ask the city manager if he would be able to comment on that one.
Fair enough. City manager.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. So the mayor has his own budget. and use as part of that budget to hire staff to support the mayor in his role, which as a member of council, but also as the kind of representative of the city in that chief executive officer role that's set out in the charter. The allocation of discretionary, councillor discretionary funds to that team, those staff would be, we understand, would be supporting the work of councillors, so which is distinct. How that work is organized, I can't speak to that.
So, yeah, okay, so thank you. I'm going to just pursue this a little bit because I've been thinking about it quite a lot. Does funding, I don't remember in certainly my time on council, this ever happening before. The mayor's office has just hired the mayor's office staff. It's not been related to councillors. So I'm wondering if funding, if you've thought this through, if funding the mayor's office staff by only some councillors of only one party results in a bias of the work of the mayor's office, which is intended to serve the city as a whole, which I assume is also council as a whole.
I think, Councillor, again, can't speak to the details of the work and how it's organized there. I do think and part of this may be semantics more than practical or functional, in the sense that the involvement of those staff in the mayor's office, I don't have the breakdown of how much work they're doing for councillors versus the mayor. So I think that's a question that would need to be referred to the mayor's team. Whether that there's any kind of increased level of partisanship in that. Again, the mayor's job is also a partisan role. So that there is no real distinction there. The mayor's staff are political staff. I think that's very clear. They always have been. They do support the political work of the mayor as well as his role as representing the city. So I don't see that as particularly in conflict. How, though, that relates to work that's being performed on behalf of councillors, though, again, couldn't speak to the detail of that.
Yeah, perhaps in that case, it would be, I think, useful to have some sort of clarification on that and whether or not there is any issue that may be one of real of governance. In terms of the role of the mayor's office and in particular the serving of the interests of council as a whole, with only some councillors providing staff within that office. And I don't know what those staff are and what they do, and if that's totally different and doesn't relate and only relates to certain councillors, or, like it is a bit of a confusing point for me and for the public. So. Great. Can I move a second round?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? That motion carries. I also just want to note that we have people on the queue. We're 3 minutes to noon. I think we should finish this line of questioning. So if I can ask for a motion to extend past noon.
So moved to extend past noon.
Okay, great. And that's just to complete questions to staff. So Councillor Kirby, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Councillor Kirby-Young, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciating the questions raised by Councillor Carr and following up. This probably is best directed also to the city manager, but I'll look for guidance. I'm aware that other councillors in the past term and I believe this term have also pooled funds to share things like constituency assistance to support some of the work of councillors. I believe the Green councillors have done that, and a shared resource for staff similarly. So I wonder if the city manager can confirm that's the case, and if any information that comes back on these questions could also incorporate that, which appears to me to be a similar aligned practice, the same as the one that Councillor Carr asked about for the ABC councillors pooling funds, that the Green councillors have also done so.
Thanks, Councillor. Yes, that is my understanding. The bylaw does contemplate that councillors might pool funds. So that's explicitly set out there, I should say. So happy to take that question as well. Again, I'll need to work with the mayor's office around whatever information is coming back, but take that question and we'll factor that in to our response. Thanks.
Okay, and then by way of follow-up on that, just for to be explicit for clarity, I believe I do peruse. I'm a bit of a nerd that way, so I do peruse the reports, and I saw that there's an allocation across all councillors pretty much for political assistance, including the Green councillors. So I wonder if that analysis could be include those specific amounts. I've seen those in the quarterly updates that are published, just to be clear.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, we can point to and look at the expenses as they've been reported. Again, as Julius indicated, that is all public information now. But
But the hiring of political, just to follow up on that, the hiring of political assistance and support is a permitted use under the expense bylaw for councillors. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's not an explicitly identified use under the bylaw. The bylaw sets out certain activities that the funding can be used to support. So as long as the staff in question are being tasked to perform those functions, which in fact are for councillors are not, it's not intended to be, quote, partisan in terms of affiliated with parties. It's constituency work, communications, research, things like that. Those are there's delineated categories of activity. That is the constraint on what the money can be used for, is those activities, whether they're being performed by councillors themselves or outsourced or hired using staff.
Exactly. That makes sense. Research, meeting preparation. Thank you. Appreciate the clarity.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Kirby-Young. Mayor Sim.
Yeah, thank you very much for the great question. I just wanted to make a couple of comments and then hopefully clear up some stuff. So first of all, the mayor's office, our team members provide an invaluable service to the city, and on multiple occasions have worked with all council members to get important files over the line. In fact, the mayor's office has offered to share all our information with all councillors, and have been offered to and on many occasions asked for what the goals of all ABC and non-ABC councillors, what their goals are and how we can help them achieve their objectives. And if that's an issue, you can take it or not. And we would be at the mayor's office, we would be more than happy to accept your contributions and funds if you're worried about some kind of bias. If you want to do that, please contribute to the cause. We'll still share the information anyways, but we could use them as well, because there's a lot of work that we need to do, not from a political perspective, but for driving the scorecard of the city forward and getting more affordable housing, creating a better environment, having safer streets, and having a buzz in the city. And we'll continue to do that. So thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. And Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you. On a different track, I am interested in the climate-related financial disclosures. So I'm wondering if you can just first put on public record through the TCFD, the credibility and the importance that is seen of the coming out of the task force on climate-related financial disclosures. Like, why was it developed? Who developed those disclosures? Its utility in terms of providing good governance or decision making?
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your question. Lloyd Lee, Senior Sustainability Specialist within PDS. TCFD has gained a lot of momentum since its inception in the mid-2010s. It's become the basis for a whole sort of sea change, I would say, in terms of incorporating climate-related information into mainstream financial disclosures. It's gained a lot of momentum on the private sector side, and that is starting to trickle down into the public sector side as well. We are early adopters in that. We have the unique opportunity to inform and also be informed by the emerging best practice that's being developed. And it's simply a way of incorporating information that is crucial to the future operability of any enterprise, public or private sector, into at a time where financial decisions are being made.
Right. I noticed in the report it talked about some of the. So that the specific sub-report that was provided to us on this, that it talked about challenges really, or next steps in terms of getting the kind of information that's needed around risks in particular, and adaptation, in particular. So I wonder if you can explain to me how we intend to proceed around gathering that information around risks and making sure we're focused on funding activities that can reduce those risks and increase our ability in terms of resilience.
It's a very good question. There's a lot of, I would say, systems and process change that has to happen within the city in terms of improvements, I would say, in terms of building upon the systems that we have already in place. Foundationally, it's basing the decisions that we make on science. Right now, in February, we took the updated climate adaptation strategy to council, which was approved. That discussed the updated climate projections upon which we're basing our adaptation strategy in a localized context. Using that information and basing all of our program and project design on those projections is kind of a foundational first step, making sure that we're all working off the same page and the same projections there. Within our financial decision-making process, last December, we took the first climate budget to council, which was adopted as well. And having that information sort of drawn out of the larger budget helps us shine a light on sort of the climate-related elements that the city is taking action on, and hopefully allowing council additional information to make those decisions. So
yes, I appreciate that information. Thank you, and I appreciate the answers. Those are my questions, and Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Carr. And I heard Councillor Joe seconded the report. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's go to a vote. Councillor Dominato? Oh, no problem. Do you need to? Okay, great. So that does pass with unanimous support. Thank you very much, staff, and thank you, council, for that work. We will come back at 12:30. Are we still okay with a quick break here? Okay, at 12:30 to reconvene and complete the rest of the committee agenda. Yeah, hopefully.
Welcome to TELUS Conference.
Hi, David. Can you hear us on the line? Hi, David. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can.
Perfect. Thank you.
So we do have quorum, so we will just reconvene this meeting, committee meeting now. Hope everyone had a good lunch, and we are now moving to item 9, which is the Mayor's Budget Task Force Implementation Committee, Terms of Reference. Oh, we have quorum, you can just run, yeah. I'm just going to ask, does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? Seeing none. This item does not have a staff presentation, but Councillor Klassen, you held this item, and so you have 5 minutes to ask questions of staff, but I'm just checking also that we have, oh yeah, we've got our city manager here. Great. Go ahead.
Thank you through you, Chair, to City Manager. Just a couple of short questions here. First of all, how will this committee, do you understand this committee will report back to council?
So to some extent, that will be determined by the committee as to when they believe it's appropriate to report back. Clearly, one of the delineated functions of the committee in the terms of references proposed is reporting to council on progress. So, but if there are other recommendations that come forward from the committee, those would also need to be processed by council as and when they're timely. So at this stage, it's a little bit to be determined by the committee itself.
Okay, and so that means the committee will then at some point be offering its recommendations back to council?
Yes, any recommendations from the committee will have to come to council. There is no decision-making power. And again, the terms of reference contemplate that there would be progress reports as well at regular intervals, again, to be determined what those intervals are.
Okay. And as far as you know, city staff will be supporting the reports to council?
Yes, so we'll support the work of the committee as needed.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Mayor Sim, questions to staff?
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to move the recommendation for this report with an amendment.
We just do have other members on the queue for questions. Would it be okay that they're allowed to ask their questions?
Sorry, I was a little excited.
Okay, we'll have you come back on. If you don't have any questions, no problem. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. Following on Councillor Klassen's questions, I also was interested in the report back and particularly just wanting to clarify or ask on the public record that report backs to council be in a public meeting as often as possible. Is that I know that was part of what was approved by council previously around the task force. I didn't see it specifically referenced, but just wanted to ask, I guess, through you, Chair, of the city manager, since we don't know who the members of this committee will be, that's a noted priority, that the report backs be public.
City manager, and then these are direct questions to staff, right?
Oh, we are in question. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
no
Not
worries.
through you, just directly to Paul. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. So other than any recommendation that would be properly considered in camera, the work of the committee will be public and the reports back to council will be public. Those may be memo or they may be reports here, again, to be determined to some extent, but it would be public information.
Okay, appreciate that. And then my second question is around the appointment of councillors. I didn't see names in here. Maybe that's appropriate. Does it go to the nominations subcommittee to appoint specific councillors?
That's really council's, provided council is comfortable with these terms of reference, then the appointment of the councillors to the committee would be council's decision as to how that gets processed.
Okay, but also would, I assume, be public because
it will be, yes.
Membership of the committee would be public. Okay, thanks. Those are all of my questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zhou.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions to the city manager. So I noticed this will be a Type D advisory committee. Type D means that is holding accountable to the mayor. And also you were saying this will be a public meeting accountable to the council as well. Can you help me navigate through that? Yeah.
So Type D can be advisory to council as well, and that's what's contemplated here, that this would be advisory to council.
Okay, I see. Okay. The other question is, in terms of the resource support from the staff, what will be the availability? I guess will be up to the committee to make a proposal to the which staff will be part of the ongoing meeting. Is that right? Yeah.
Certainly. So myself and the CFO are happy to support the committee, and we can determine, which other staff members would be appropriate to bring to committee to support the committee, depending on what the work is. So that again, we would assess that based on what the committee is asking for.
Okay, thanks. That's all my question, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
I'm just wondering about the comparability of this with other municipalities. I have talked to some other municipalities that don't have subcommittees that prioritize budgeting. Budgeting is done by council as a whole. So I'm wondering if there's any intelligence that somebody can provide me on whether or not there are other municipalities that actually have a subcommittee of council that prioritize the budget. That prioritize budget spending.
Councillor, I can provide a bit of context for that. First, I think it's important to note that the mandate of this committee is not budgeting. It's the actual implementation of recommendations coming out of the task force. So there are other municipalities that do, for example, have executive committees of council that deal with budgets and finances. So there definitely are municipalities that have subcommittees of council that deal with budgeting, but that's not what's intended here. This committee is not, as currently contemplated, is not developing the budget. It is overseeing the prioritization and implementation of the task force recommendations.
Right. Okay, I understand that, but implementing is key. I mean, what order you or where you allocate. I guess the funds are allocated in the budget. So it's the process of timing, isn't that what?
So again, this committee has no authority to allocate resources, make decisions around, again, those can be recommendations that come back to council to, for example, prioritize actions in a particular order, or in particular if those require investment. And then it's like I say, the other activity would be monitoring progress and reporting back to council on that.
Okay, so prioritizing actions in a particular order. That's the goal. Okay, so that's fairly strategic. But all of those just recommendations would come back to council.
Yes.
To be able to discuss in public forum.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, subject to if there's some subset of this that was properly dealt with in camera. But yes, generally the work of this committee is public.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. And Mayor Sim.
Okay, great. Still excited. So is now the time where I can we have a recommendation?
That moment.
Okay. For this report with an amendment. So I do believe.
I will move us to an amendment queue. Oh, right. Mayor, would you mind just clarifying if you intend to move the original recommendations along with your amendment?
Yes.
Okay. We'll just do that, make it 2 steps. So
yeah.
Move the recommendations first.
Sure.
Okay. Second, Councillor Klassen. Great. And then to the recommendations, Mayor, I'm just sorry, you just got bumped off there. Go ahead. You have an amendment?
Yes.
Okay. And so now we're on an amendment queue, and we will need a seconder. I don't know what the clerks have or not. I'm just following the process here. Yeah. We can certainly, it needs to be on the floor to even question it. So I'm just trying to get to that stage by moving the report to get to where we are. Yeah. So Mayor, we are in an amendment queue. You have an amendment that needs to be circulated and it needs to be seconded. So I would just ask, I see the amendment just arrived in our inboxes. So that
I'll second.
And a second from Councillor Kirby Young. And Mayor, you have the floor if you could introduce your.
Okay. So, yeah, sorry about the logistics here. Are we able to pull it up on the screen?
Yeah.
It won't be. Okay. So, first of all, I do want to say I'm extremely grateful for the Mayor's Budget Task Force for their work and for the work of our city team that went into creating these terms of reference. It was a heavy lift, so thank you so much. And when we heard the final report from the task force, we committed to implementing these recommendations. Now, as we enter the second phase of this work and focus on delivering results for Vancouverites, we need to ensure these recommendations are implemented effectively to set up Vancouver's fiscal future for decades to come. Councillors Dominato, Meisner, and Joe, who I've recommended here to be appointed to the Budget Task Force Implementation Committee, all bring their unique set of expertise and recognize the importance of implementing these recommendations. So I know we're all familiar in this room of our amazing councillors, but I'll give you some highlights here in the context of this committee. So Councillor Dominato has a very strong background in organizational governance and is a former provincial staffer with budgeting expertise. Councillor Joe, one of the two council reps on the initial mayor's budget task force, so provides continuity and has been there from the very beginning. And Councillor Joe also has a master's degree in operations research with a deep knowledge of applied math and has a background in operations management. So, we're really fortunate to have Councillor Joe there, obviously, and Councillor Dominato as well. And finally, Councillor Meisner presently serves as the board, on the board for Easy Park, Vancouver Civic Theatres, the Vancouver Public Library, and Metro Vancouver, and has previously managed the digital budget for UBC's Media Relations Department. And so when you look at the context of that experience, Councillor Meisner is basically, he has line of sight on a lot of the items or areas in our city that will be affected to the positive. And so these, I think these three incredible individuals bring a lot to the table, and enthusiastically am recommending that they are on the committee.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Boyle, to the amendment.
Thanks. I appreciate the willingness of these three folks to be part of the committee. I'm just once again asking that amendments not be circulated at the absolute last second so that the rest of us can actually participate here. Thanks.
And duly noted. Thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, I think it's always good to have things in advance. I agree with Councillor Boyle on that one. I'm just going to express my hope that there will be discussions, informal discussions that occur. I'm sure there'll be lots of, back and forth in the committee itself around recommendations, but I am going to encourage and hope that there would be some broader discussion if there are some particularly sticky questions and trade-offs that might occur. So just, as I say, putting out there that hope.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Seeing no one else on the queue, we can go ahead and vote on the amendment.
Eric, may I have a vote assist in favor, please?
Thank you, Councillor Kirby Young. Vote assist in favor. Great, and that motion passes with unanimous support. So thank you very much, and thank you to the three members identified who'll be joining the task force. That'll be the implementation, I should say, committee. So now we need to vote on the main motion as amended, and I'm back on the main queue. Any final comments from any?
Nope. I'm good.
Okay, seeing none, we can go to a final vote.
A vote assist in favor, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kirby Young. And that motion does pass as amended with unanimous support. Okay, so that does bring us to the end of report 9. So thank you very much for that work, and we will continue on now in dealing with two council members' motions. We'll take a brief recess after the first one so that I can hand the chair over to Vice Chair Zhao, and then Zhou. Mayor, you've thrown me off now.
Sorry, my bad.
And then we'll come right back, so that'll just be very brief. All right, so we're going to deal with the next item is motion 1, request for leaves of absence. We have the following request, Councillor Klassen for civic business from meetings on May 7th from 12 p.m. onwards. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Carr. Seconded, and all those in, or any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Great, that motion carries. So that is motion 1. And the next motion, as we have speakers and it is my motion, I'm just going to briefly hand the chair over to Vice Chair. Just log in as yourself.
Sure. Okay. Okay, perfect. Thanks. All right, thanks everyone. So we are ready. So the next item is motion 2, kicking off community benefits for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And it's to be moved and introduced by Councillor Bligh. Does any member wish to declare any conflict of interest on this item? Okay, see you none. So Councillor Bligh, you have 2 minutes to introduce your motion.
I'm just loading up the system here, so clerks, if I can't put myself on the queue, but yeah, so thanks. I am introducing a motion today. The name of the motion is kicking off community benefits for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. I can't take responsibility for the pun, but I think it's very well done. So I wanted to just highlight today an opportunity for us as a council to be able to shape the unique opportunity that's before us with the FIFA World Cup coming to Vancouver in 2 years. Of course, Vancouver is a very proud city, being able to host this event, and also a very proud city to be to have the diversity that we do have and core commitment to all residents in our city of all socioeconomic diversity, as well as commitment to reconciliation. And so FIFA 2026 gives us a chance to really highlight the city that we are in all facets. Of course, it's the biggest event in the world. So as we are approaching it, we're also considering how we do that in a very intentional and meaningful way. It goes without saying that there's many host partners, the province, YBR, PAVCO, and then of course FIFA itself. So there's a continued cooperation around working with all the various stakeholder groups. But when it
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. So I need to get your mic back. Here we go.
When it comes to community benefit agreements, it's important to recognize that in having these agreements, they allow for the promotion of a shared vision in which the needs of equity and equity-denied communities are at the forefront rather than an afterthought. And so we knew that provided great success around initiatives like the 2010 Olympics. And although FIFA is distinct from the Olympics, there still is an opportunity for us to lean in at this early juncture to make sure that we are integrating community benefits into the planning processes, and that we are setting it as a foundation for equitable, sustainable, and, and inclusive community activations for the entire event. And then, of course, setting the bar in that regard for future councils, future decisions, future events. And we see that the City of Toronto is also activating in a similar way. So it would be really great to also provide that leadership right across the board when it comes to all of the host cities related to the FIFA World Cup.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bligh. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Claassen. Now we're going to hear from the registered speaker for this motion. The public speakers should state whether they are in support or in opposition of this motion and may only speak once. I will also ask speakers if they are the residents of Vancouver if it is not noted on the speakers list. Our first registered speaker is Marcia Nozick. Is Marcia on the line?
I am.
Yeah, please go ahead, Marcia.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah. Hi, yes, I am a resident of Vancouver. Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. So I'm here speaking on behalf of Embers. Embers is a community economic development charity that's been operating in the downtown east side since 2001, and I'm its founder and the CEO. We provide employment, training, and support to thousands of people each year. And these are people who come from equity-seeking groups who have barriers to entering the workforce. Embers Staffing is our social enterprise. It's a temporary labor agency that provides transitional jobs to people getting back on their feet, and it acts as a bridge towards full-time employment. So I'm here today to strongly support this motion to direct staff to work with hosting partners to explore the community benefits, the opportunities in the planning and delivering of the World Cup. I mean, such a major event could provide hundreds and even thousands of people an opportunity to move forward in their lives, and it would create a legacy for years to come in building a strong community. I mean, Embers Staffing got its start during the 2010 Olympics, where we placed hundreds of workers on job sites building stages, venues, deconstructing the media center, assisting with hospitality. And since then, we've grown to become a $16 million social enterprise, the largest in all of Canada. And we employ more than 2,000 people annually, all from equity-seeking groups. Our tremendous success is an outcome, a direct outcome, of the supportive business relationships and the partnerships that were developed as a result of the CBAs that were implemented by the city. For example, in 2017-2018, the construction of the Park Casino Resort project, it had a CBA agreement attached to it. As a result of that, Embers employed 505 workers on site. We paid out $1.5 million in wages and benefits to workers, and it resulted in 95 full-time jobs for local residents, people who may not have had a chance at a job before. And this would not have happened without the impetus of the CBA. People like Mike Dick, who got his start on a CBA construction site. I met Michael when he was living in a recovery house. He'd been trying for months to find a job, but no one would hire him. He couldn't explain to potential employers why he hadn't worked in 8 years. And his counselor said, go to Embers. And we found him a job the very next day on a CBA construction site. Mike had a great attitude, and we were able to provide him skills training while he worked, and he became a hoist operator, a construction safety officer, and 5 years later, Mike was promoted to assistant site superintendent. He now works full-time, earns a 6-digit income, he's remarried, has a 2-bedroom home, and he owns a big Ford F-150 truck. And
Sorry,
that's all because
Marcia,
of the...
sorry, you're at time, but thanks for speaking to council today.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, okay. The next registered speaker is Irvin Ostendi, and I think he's on the phone.
Oh, you hear me?
Please go ahead, Irvin. You have 3 minutes.
Great, thanks very much. Thanks, Mayor and Council and Committee Chair. My name is Irvin Ostendi. I'm with Vor Urban Labs. We're an urban planning company based in Chinatown in Vancouver, and I'm a resident, lifelong resident of Vancouver, and huge soccer fan, season ticket holder of the Vancouver Whitecaps, and a huge advocate for CBAs. I wanted to speak in favor of the motion, but bring a couple of issues based on our experience with the 2010 games. The CBA policy that's referenced is really an excellent tool, and Councillor Bligh has done a great job of detailing its value and its purpose, and its proposed outcome or its policy objective. I think one thing, though, we see, and I've been participating in the Community Benefits Network over the last few years, and one thing that is fairly universal in our experience with the CBA policy of Vancouver is that it's significantly underperforming with respect to its policy goals. And I think that the 10% target could be and would be easily reached, and I think we really can be setting our sights higher. I say it also as someone who, as a city staff person back in 2004, helped draft the impacts on community policy work that became an official part of the bid book from Judy Rogers, the city manager. It's the first time in the IOC's history that we actually had an inclusive games policy that became part of the commitment between Vancouver and the IOC. Now, those 37 commitments, when we actually looked at the oversight, which was lacking, resulted in only 3 out of the 37 commitments actually being implemented. So I think while the motion is fantastic, it's timely, it's important, we also think more specifically about the implementation and the oversight mechanisms, specifically independent oversight mechanisms. The games, like the Olympics, and today notably in Paris, literally actually today, there's my colleagues at SFU are speaking to groups in Paris today about these questions of what are the impacts of mega events on the city's most vulnerable communities, and how can we ensure that games like the Paris Games, like the Vancouver 2010 Olympics, like the 2026 FIFA World Cup, when they use language like most inclusive, which Vancouver and Paris did, most inclusive Olympic Games, they actually deliver on that, and that they avoid the performativity of these social inclusion policies. And so I think that we can go further than the 10%. We can also look at the impacts of mega events on small business, on vulnerable communities, and make sure that when we think about the huge public that's going into this, to the Vancouver 2026 FIFA World Cup, that we really do create that independent oversight mechanism, and that we ask staff to think about where there are good models for that. I know our company has done independent research around accountability metrics and oversight systems to make sure that good policy like this, like Councillor Bligh's motion, actually is tracked and that the intention of those policies are met through that.
Thank you,
independent
Irvin. You are at
oversight.
time.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking to Council. Our next registered speaker is Charlotte Ludwig. Is Charlotte on the line?
Hello, this is Charlotte Ludwig.
Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes, Charlotte.
Wonderful. Hi, everybody. I'm Charlotte Ludwig. I'm the manager of community benefits and partnerships at Bisocial Canada. I'm a resident of Vancouver, and I am in support of this motion. I think it poses a really great opportunity for us to leverage the upcoming FIFA Games to create as many benefits as possible and long-lasting relationships between community and with our businesses. I really want to reiterate the importance of engaging with community early in the planning process for this and identifying realistic opportunities that we can work together on procurement and employment, and identifying them early to give both the small business, social enterprise, and employment agency sector the proper runway to have capacity to respond to opportunities, to prepare their labor force, and to be able to really take advantage of this opportunity. So in addition to that, I think it's important that we look at the sustainability of these opportunities beyond the games. So ensuring that these opportunities aren't just a singular one-off contracts or labor requirements, but how do we create a legacy and a long-lasting opportunities for our local economy, for our social enterprises and nonprofits and our employment agencies, so that they can outlast these games and continue on to have a positive legacy for this policy. We also wanted to recommend that when we move into hopefully the implementation of this motion, that we work with community and the city to set targets that are relevant and accurate towards demographics and our desired outcomes, and also creating an advisory team for both the implementation, the reporting, and looking into how we support organizations once the games are over to continue programs past the games. So I really want to commend Councillor Bligh on this motion. We are in full support.
All right, thank you, Charlotte. The next speaker is Matthew Smedley. Is Matthew on the line?
Thank you. Yes, my name
Please
is
go
Matthew
ahead.
Smedley. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of Mission Possible, a community economic development agency in the downtown east side of Vancouver. And I am a resident of the city of Vancouver, and I am speaking in favor of this motion. In 2009, some city staff approached Mission Possible as a potential organization to offer social impact hiring in the downtown east side leading up to the 2010 Olympics. At the time, that Great Beginnings funding allowed us to begin to hire individuals who were excluded from employment, to remove graffiti and to beautify the downtown east side, while also gaining skills and earning a paycheck from some dignified and supportive employment. This effort on the part of the City of Vancouver allowed for a dozen or so individuals to experience the positive life impact that comes through inclusive employment opportunities in that first year. I was proud to be able to lead that work and to equip the teams in those early days. If we fast forward to today, that intentional decision to create social impact through the funding has led not only to graffiti being removed, but it was the catalyst for Mission Possible to grow and evolve to what it is today, and develop Mission Possible Maintenance, which is a full-service exterior property cleaning company that hires hundreds of individuals in the downtown east side, pays millions of dollars in wages to those who have been excluded from traditional work. In our current fiscal year, we have seen 45 individuals who have gone through our program move into permanent work outside of our organization. And I credit the City of Vancouver and the staff at the time who were able to see the social procurement impact that was possible and direct funding in that direction. Studies have shown that when individuals are employed in social enterprises, not only is there positive economic change for the individuals employed, but that there is a broader positive economic impact on the surrounding community through a reduction of emergency and support services that are needed. According to Ernst & Young, this can create a social return on investment to the tune of more than 400% of the wages paid. And so it simply makes fiscal sense. So I urge Council to consider what's possible from the opportunity in front of us to see that the money spent at the FIFA Games can ensure that the purchasing and services procured make a marked difference in our city through setting the social impact benchmarks that must be achieved by all those who provide services or products. But to ensure that they far exceed what happens organically every day. We have seen in the current CBA framework for developers that really those benchmarks should have been set. It would have been great to have those set higher. And so we really want to see those pushed to a place that's really possible, but that can really move the needle on inclusive employment opportunities. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration.
Okay, thank you, Matthew, for speaking to Council. The next speaker is speaker number 5, John Zadur. John here in the chamber. Yep. Just go ahead, John. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, council members. My name is John Zader, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at Exchange Intercity. At Exchange Intercity, our focus is primarily on community economic development and working to create a more equitable economy in the downtown east side. Firstly, Exchange Intercity does support Councillor Bligh's motion, intentionally linking equitable economic development to an event such as the upcoming FIFA World Cup will bring significant benefits to Vancouver while also demonstrating Council's leadership and commitment to the healthy city strategy and ensuring all Vancouverites can thrive. Last week, over 90 people from the downtown east side community, including several council members in the chamber today, gathered to discuss and plan for a thriving downtown east side. The gathering agreed that community economic development has a very practical meaning, that being long-term economic sustainability in a community where residents can live, work, shop, and socialize in a way that is accessible to each person. The 2026 FIFA World Cup provides an opportunity to help build economic sustainability in the downtown east side by including social procurement and a specialized community benefits agreement as part of the planning and delivery of the event. We know from the UBC research study, Assessing Economic Transitions, also known as the Asset Study, that opportunities for low threshold employment are key to stability and quality of life. One person in the study shared, and I quote, "I got another job to support me. I got my own one-bedroom apartment, and I love my life right now. I've been clean off drugs for 12 years, and I'm involved with work that has a lot of meaning to me." Many residents in the downtown east side do want to participate in economic engagement activities that meet them where they're at and in places that provide them with the understanding and supports that they need. There are several social enterprises in the downtown east side that provide low threshold employment opportunities. These social enterprises are excellent at what an event like FIFA requires, such as community stewardship and street cleaning, back of house waste sorting, catering, short-term hiring, and much more. A social procurement and community benefits framework with the FIFA partners can help social enterprises in the downtown east side do what they do best. Provide opportunities for residents to engage in low threshold employment that ultimately helps them with the stability and income that they need to live their daily lives. We strongly support this motion and ask that the downtown east side community be intentionally engaged by city staff to help co-create the framework to ensure it will be accessible to social enterprises in the downtown east side. We, along with our partners such as Bisocial Canada's and others that you've heard today, look forward to collaborating to create an equitable economy where all residents can thrive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Okay, so our next speaker is the last speaker, speaker number 6, Lynn White. Is Lynn White on the line? Okay, Lynn, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes. Before you start, can I ask you if you are a resident of Vancouver? It's a procedure question.
Oh, no, I am not a resident of Vancouver, but I operate 2 offices in Vancouver.
Okay, no problem. Please go ahead, Lynn. 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the honor of being able to speak to you. I serve as the president and CEO of Access. We're a nonprofit organization that provides training and employment opportunities to urban Indigenous people in Metro Vancouver. I am in support of this motion, and I'd like to urge Mayor and Council members to consider allocating a minimum of 10% of the job opportunities associated with the upcoming 2026 FIFA World Cup towards creating employment prospects with specific focus on our Access Blade Runners Youth at Risk program and other Indigenous workers. Access Blade Runners originated from the construction of GM Place in the 1990s and has evolved through partnerships and initiatives in Vancouver's construction and development sectors since that time up to and including today. We were also very involved in the Olympics. By prioritizing opportunities for Indigenous peoples, the city will be responding to the principles of reconciliation by not only addressing systemic disparities, but also harnessing diverse talents and perspectives. Through dedicated training initiatives and mentorship programs, Indigenous individuals can secure meaningful employment, enhancing their economic stability and supporting community resilience. Concurrently, by involving at-risk youth in skill-building opportunities and job placements, it offers a pathway to break the cycle of disadvantage, empowering our youth to make positive steps forward and contributing to society. These endeavors not only foster social cohesion, but also invigorate economic vitality, strengthening the entire community. Thank you so much for your time. I know how much work the City of Vancouver has done towards reconciliation, and I put my hands up to you for that, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Lynn, for speaking to Council. This is the end of our speakers list. Thanks, everyone. And committee members, is there any discussion? I saw Councillor Clausen. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. First of all, thank you to
Councillor Bligh for bringing forward this motion, and for all the speakers for those really heartening remarks. I think back to just what an incredibly positive experience it was for me and so many people across the city during the 2010 games. And so much of that work depended upon organizations like 2010 Legacies Now that had spent a lot of time trying to make sure that there was a strong legacy for people in our community. And I see a similar path forward in perhaps on a different scale here, but to bring in these 7 major matches that will bring so much joy and thrill for fans of the game and people who want to celebrate our city as host, but also for all the people who will be working and volunteering during that time, leading up through and during the FIFA 2026 World Cup. So very supportive of this, and really look forward to seeing how our whole city and so many people that live here can really benefit from this forthcoming event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dominado, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. And echoing the comments of my colleague, Councillor Clausen, thank you to Councillor Bligh for bringing the motion forward. I actually think the speakers have really articulated how critical this is, particularly as we host an international event and the opportunity of having the engagement of social procurement, but social enterprise, and particularly one of the speakers spoke to the low barrier threshold nature of this opportunity. And when I was serving on a nonprofit board here in Vancouver, we had a supported employment program, and the benefits of that is that we have many individuals living here in the city who cannot necessarily participate in the regular workforce, regularized employment of 40, 50 hours a week. And so supported employment programs, like we had the CEO of Mission Possible speak, provides an opportunity for full participation of community members, and it provides for that sort of economic resilience and equity that I think we want to see, and we want to lift people up. And so from that perspective, I'm very supportive of the motion and the intent, and look forward to report back.
Thank you, Councillor Dominado. Mayor Sim, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Bligh, thank you very much for bringing this motion forward. And I do want to thank all the speakers that lended their voice to this initiative today. And it's not just the voice; it's your time, your passion, your effort, not just in this chamber, but every day in, day out. And so, not as a mayor of Vancouver, as a resident of Vancouver, and as a human being, thank you. I'll keep my comments brief. I know there are a lot of people throughout the city and the region and the country that need, help. And, and as a just society, I think we should be providing that help. But more importantly, not more importantly, and there are a lot of times people aren't looking for a hand out. They're looking for a hand up. And I love this because this does that. Like I've seen so many people who are, they're willing and able, and they want to contribute, and they want to help themselves, but they're never given the opportunity. And this does that. And I know when these individuals are given the opportunity, more often than not, they're going to shine. And so I love it. It supports community. It supports local. It supports people. It breaks the cycle of disadvantage, as one of our speakers mentioned. And I think this could be one of the big true legacies of FIFA World Cup. When the fanfare dies down and whatever, having more members in our community uplifted and living their best lives. And I think it's great. And I am going to enthusiastically support this motion. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Bligh, to conclude your motion.
Thanks very much, Chair. And just appreciating the comments around the council chamber today. Everybody has spoken very well to what we've heard from speakers, and just appreciate the support. Thank you, Councillor Claassen, for seconding. Also want to recognize Councillor Dominado has taken an active role in meeting with staff and figuring out how this could work as well. So we know that work will continue in such a way. So thank you as well for that. I've already sort of messaged to have a lot of the feedback that's gleaned from the speakers captured so that we can follow up with staff, because this motion has come forward in sort of short order so that we can get it on the planning efforts early. But there's also a lot of stakeholder engagement that's required to make sure that the many voices that show up every day in these groups, social procurement, community economic development, the downtown east side, and the social enterprises that are sort of the vehicles to make that happen, or the avenues to make that happen, are part of the formula or the framework that we can put forward. So while we have a policy and a framework, there's always room for improvement, and we hear that time and again. So we'll continue to iterate forward and really use this opportunity to, be realistic about expectations. We have to say that this is a massive event, and FIFA has a lot of rules about what we can and can't do, and that's just the nature of it. And PAVCO and the province are partners, but there's also going to be quite a few things that the city does do, and will commit resources to. And so in those instances, it is absolutely an exciting opportunity to put our social procurement practices into place and framework to make sure that the greatest benefit can be realized for all people that live in our city. And as the mayor just so well stated, this is the unique opportunity we have in our city, really, is to provide opportunity and then allow people to step in and really shine. And we see that time and time again, that's what's happening in the downtown east side. So to every single, and beyond, but to every single speaker that spoke today, you're calling in on behalf of organizations that are already doing this work, that are making tremendous impact, and it really doesn't get highlighted enough because you just show up every single day and keep doing the work you're doing. And so just using that as an opportunity to see you all as representatives of also a much larger group that continue to do this work as well. And let's make this event an opportunity that really lifts up everybody in our city and provides leadership across the board in this worldwide, global way. So with that, I'm very happy to say I'm complete on my comments. Over to you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bligh. So now I'm going to call the vote. Clerk, please take us to the voting screen. And Council, please register your vote on the voting panel. Okay, so this motion does pass unanimously. Perfect. So that completes motion 2 on the agenda. So we're going to do a very quick recess so we can have Chair Bligh to the chair.
Okay, so we will continue on here with that is the end of the standing committee. Yes, okay, so that is the standing committee portion of this meeting is now complete. We will now convene in council with Mayor Sim as chair to deal with the recommendations and actions from today's committee meeting.
Oh, here we go. Great. Okay. Thank you very much. We will now convene in council in order. We will now convene in council in order to deal with the recommendations and actions from today's standing committee on city finance and services meeting. Clerk, may we please have roll call?
Mayor Sim in the chair, Councillor Carr, Councillor Kirby Young,
Present.
Councillor Dominato, Councillor Bligh,
Present.
Councillor Boyle, Councillor Fry is on a leave of absence for civic business all day. Councillor Montague is on a leave of absence for personal reasons all day. Councillor Klassen.
Present.
Councillor Meisner is on a leave of absence for civic business all day. Councillor Joe,
Present.
you have quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you very much. We need a motion to adopt the standing committee's recommendations for reports 1 through 9 and council members' motions 1 and 2.
So moved.
Great, thank you, Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Klassen. All those opposed? Whoa, I jumped. No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to redo this. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. Now, I do have one urgent motion that I'd like to put forward. So I guess I have to cede the chair. Correct? Okay, I am going to cede the chair to Councillor Bligh.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor. Please go ahead.
Okay, look, I know this is kind of unusual. At least this is my first time doing it here. As anyone who's been outside or watched TV or even been asleep in the city of Vancouver, I think we all know that there is quite the buzz in the city as it relates to our local hockey team. Whether you're in a restaurant or a pub or just walking around, obviously, you can feel the electricity in the air. You see people wearing jerseys across the street. Everyone's talking about their stories. And if you have an old timer like myself, we go back way to the 70s and we talk about, the V jerseys and what have you. So needless to say, Vancouver is a hockey town. And it is actually a shame that we do not have a massive Vancouver Canucks flag flying by City Hall to show our support. And so this motion is time sensitive because the next game is on Friday. We want to make sure that everyone across the region, in fact, across the planet, knows that at City Hall we are massive Vancouver Canucks supporters. And so with that, I'd like to pass a motion that the City of Vancouver raised the Vancouver Canucks flag on the North Lawn flagpole at City Hall in place of the City of Vancouver's flag for the duration of the Vancouver Canucks 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs run. And hopefully it's a very long run. And it's up there.
Second, Councillor Klassen. Any discussion? Councillor Klassen.
Go Canucks, go.
Well stated. Okay, great. Seeing none other, we can move straight to a vote. And that motion passes with unanimous support. So thank you very much, Mayor. I will now hand the chair back to you.
That was actually a test to see if we had any Leafs fans in here. All right. Okay. So adjournment. Would someone like to move a motion to adjourn this meeting? Great. Councillor Joe, seconded by Councillor Bligh. I think you put up your hand. Great. All those in favor say yay.
Okay.
All those opposed say nay. Great. That motion carries unanimously. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, staff.
Thanks, team.